We're going to hopefully do a quick little activity. I'm going to try to cram as much stuff into this section as I can. So, with that, my question is, good audio quality or good video quality? Which one wins?
Good audio.
Right. Why?
You can at least hear like what the characters are saying.
Right. You can get the point of the story, you can get the message, and it's not going to offend your ears. Let's take it a step back real quick. Film sound should not draw attention to itself. Well, if you're listening to a film and there's this continuous repetitive clicking going on, well, it's going to draw some attention to it, and it's not going to work out well. Sometimes you can have degraded video quality and good audio, and you can still get the gist of what's going on. Directors will use it creatively from time to time, but as long as that audio is clear, nobody's going to be cringing or getting up to leave. I do have a couple of examples. Hey, we're right on. Okay, so what makes good audio? What makes bad audio?
Good mics.
Good mic. What do you want out of your audio? You misunderstood my question because I asked it wrong. But you want three things: clean, clear, balanced. Clean. What does that mean? That means free from noise. That means free from clipping. What is clipping? Well, wow, everything is falling apart on me today. I am so happy. Well, it's two different sides of things can go wrong. Sound is air pressure energy, okay? It moves in waves. There are actually waves going this way, right? We capture these waves with things called transducers or microphones, and we convert the sound pressure energy into electrical energy so that we can store it on a storage medium. Got that? If that signal is too hot, too high, too loud, what happens is the storage medium cannot contain it. So the nice waves that we see in the waveforms get pushed up and they get chopped right off. They don't terminate nicely and they don't sound good, and what happens is it distorts. And that you can't fix. Once you distort the sound, the information that you need to make it sound clean again is not there. There is a plugin by this company called Isotope that I've seen floating around that people claim to be able to declip. Well, I have not heard it work well yet. So just think of it this way. Don't clip. Don't have the signal too loud. Once you clip or you distort the signal, you can't fix it. That's one side of the problem. The other problem is room noise or noise. How does that happen? Well, if your signal is too low when you record, and then when you're going to play it back, you have to turn it up to hear it, right? Well, guess what else you're turning up when you turn up the signal? The noise floor. So that's a problem. So you want the signal to be clean, so that's in the right volume level, and for dialogue that's -12. You want to be around -12. Clear, you don't want noise, you don't want an indirect signal. You don't want sound that we hear bouncing off the wall before it gets to the microphone. That's not clear. It's going to be kind of muddy. And separated. Well, that's really for production sound. You want to have each of your microphones or each of your sound sources not bleeding into one another as much as possible. It's inevitable that it will happen, and a good dialogue editor can take care of that, but separation as much as possible. They're the three things you're going for. Let's talk about the process of making a soundtrack. Well, first, let's talk about the 4 elements of a soundtrack. Did we talk about that? We did? I can't keep track. What are the 4 elements of a soundtrack? There are 4 main things that you're going to have in your film soundtrack. What is one? Music is one. We'll call that score. No, that's a process. We're talking about what goes in. What sounds are you putting into this? Foley would be underneath sound effects. So we'll say music, sound effects. Come on, what's the real important one? What tells the story? Dialogue. And what's the other one that's kind of like dialogue, but it's not quite between the actors? Narration. So you have those 4 elements. How do we get those 4 elements? Well, through these processes. The first would be, well, there's really 2 main sides, right? You've got production sound, and you've got post-production sound. Let's go talk about production sound. That is all of the recording that we do on the set during production while we're making the film. That consists of a team of people. That could be 2, 3, maybe 4, but there's really 2 main players. The first person is the sound mixer. They're really not mixing anything. They're just controlling the recorder. So they're the one that's initially going to make sure that we're not clipping, that the signal is healthy enough that we don't have to drag all the noise up in post. And they're also the person that is in charge of the sound crew, and they're interfacing with the director. Very important job. The other person, who has an equally important job, is the boom operator. The boom operator is the person that uses the boom with the microphone on the end, that gets that microphone where it needs to be to get good, clean, clear, and separated sound. It is a very physically demanding job, and they have to know where all of the cues are, where all the blocking is. They have to avoid shadows. They have to know all the lines so that they can get that microphone where it needs to be. There is a high demand for boom ops. Not a lot of people do it. For those of you that are trying to think about what you might want to do in the industry, you might want to consider learning how to be a boom op. On a lot of independent film shoots, they're the only people that get paid if the director knows what's up. Because if you get good production audio, you get good dialogue that's usable, you're going to save them money down the line. So your main goal is to get good, usable dialogue. There might be a utility tech which does some other things. They may go off as a second boom op. You could have more than that. But really, it's those 2 main players, okay? So why is it going to save them money? Well, if your production sound is flawed for whatever reason, what do we have to do now? Moving on to the second set of processes, which is post-production, we now have to recreate that dialogue with a process known as ADR, or automatic dialogue replacement, which means we have to go into a studio, get the actors back in, have them record the lines to picture, in character, recreating all of the energy and making it seem as believable as possible, which is not an easy thing to do. It's tedious and it's expensive. Why? Got to pay the actors, got to pay the studio, got to pay the engineer. That's not a cheap thing. And it's not really all that fun either. So when that happens, you have to wipe the audio out. So now we're recreating the dialogue. What else do we have to recreate? All the sound effects, because you don't have any of that. That's done through a process known as Foley, which is named after a person named Jack Foley, who was really credited being the first person to do this. Now, we don't only do Foley in the event that the production audio is flawed. Sometimes we will Foley sounds just to make the sound effects bigger. Film sound is an exaggeration of reality, so we might want to make things more dramatic. In Foley, it is a long process too. They will go through a complete pass of the film and just record clothing, just cloth, just drapery, just an entire cloth pass, they call it. Then they'll go through an entire pass of just the main character's footsteps. Then they'll go through again and all the background footsteps. Everything, they just keep going over and layering these sounds on top of one another. Doesn't sound too fun. Maybe a little, but. So then you have Foley sound effects, you have the music. You might have a composer that will write music for the film. You will maybe put in music that is pre-recorded. The main players in this stage are the composer, the music supervisor, who really, all they do is they find and clear and place copyrighted music, and they pay for the licensing. That's a whole other lecture for another day. The music editor really interfaces between the composer and the director. They make director speak make sense to composers, they make composers speak make sense to directors. Again, on small films, you might not have these people, but they do exist, and these processes can get pretty big. And then you mix. The mixing is the final stage where they take all of the elements, they balance them against one another, they polish them. You may have multiple people mixing. On a big film, you might have 3 or 6 people doing this. 1 person or 2 people for just the music, 1 or 2 people for just the dialogue, 1 or 2 people for just the sound effects. And those 3 stems, or buses, we could call them, get mixed and balanced against one another. Let's talk about gear real quick. Camera microphones, i.e. microphones that are on cameras, they're too far away from the talent. If you're all the way over here and the talent's all the way over there and you've got the microphone over here, you've got to turn that gain or volume up to get them loud enough. But when you do that, what else are you raising? The background noise. And that's no good. So you need to get a microphone close to that person or close to that action. And that's where the boom pole comes in. Okay? There's a boom pole right there. We've got a shotgun microphone on it. If you don't have a boom, improvise. I don't know if I said this, but like when I was making recordings when I was in high school, I was just working with whatever I could find, whatever gear I had. And I was making mistakes. And that's good because you learn from your mistakes. That imprints in your mind like, oh, well, last time this happened. I was using a microphone, the grill on the front was completely smashed off. It was terrible. You know, so improvise. Use a broomstick. If you don't have a good microphone, anything will be better than recording from across the room. Duct tape your cell phone to it. Put the recorder on or something. Just get there. Microphones, okay? No slate, no problem. Basically, improvise. Use a sheet of paper. I've seen students use pizza boxes. Clap your hands. The slate is there to sync up the video and the audio when you're using 2 separate systems, okay? I'm trying to move quick here because we get so much stuff I want to go over. Let's talk about microphones. There are 2 things you need to know about microphones if you're thinking about buying a microphone or choosing a microphone for your application. And those 2 things are the type of microphone, and we categorize the type of microphone by the way that they work, okay? And the polar pattern or the pickup pattern. And that is how they hear or pick up sounds in a 3-dimensional space or an acoustic space, okay? The types of microphones, you have 3 of them here. One is a condenser, one is a dynamic, one is a lavalier. Let's go backwards. Lavalier. I'm wearing a lavalier right now. Here it is. It's got a little element on it. They are great because you can hide them very easily. On production sound, we usually keep the lavaliers as backups in case the boom is not, you know, usable. What the problem with lavalier is for production sound is that it's very sterile and free from natural sound effects. The boom is mobile. You can move it around and you can get more ambience if needed. Wide shots need more ambience. Close-ups need less. Okay? The volume of the voice always stays the same, but the ambience might change depending on the perspective of the shot. What's good about a lavalier? It's the way the pickup pattern is. It's what we call omnidirectional. I know I'm jumping back and forth here, which I don't normally do, but you could have 2 actors close together share this backup microphone. But it also is omnidirectional, meaning it picks up in all directions equally. So you're going to get reflected sound sometimes. If you lean over a table and you have this on, you're going to get reflected sound off the table. If you go like this, and you're over the shoulder, sound's going to drop off. So there are certain pluses and minuses to all of these microphones. A condenser microphone, let's go over to the top. Condenser microphone is a microphone that requires an external power source called phantom power to run. They're very sensitive to subtle sounds. They sound very hyped up, which is a really good thing, especially on the end of a boom pole. A dynamic microphone is a microphone that has a magnet in it that is incredibly rugged. You could drop it off a building and it would still work. And they're great for loud sounds. You want to record, if you're recording some sound effects and you want to record a car horn, use a dynamic mic. Don't put a condenser mic under the hood of a car. Why? Because you'll probably clip the recording. Okay? So those are the 3 types for now. There's some subheadings underneath condenser, but let's not worry about that. Pickup patterns, okay? This is important too. That's the second thing you got to think about. The omnidirectional microphone, again, hears in all directions equally. It has the most consistent off-axis frequency response, for those of you that like big words. Bidirectional is the figure 8 pattern. You probably won't use that in film production, but it exists and it's good to know about. These 2 are the money patterns, the cardioid and the hypercardioid. They're called that because the pickup pattern is shaped like a heart, okay? A cardioid is unidirectional. It's going to reject sound from behind, and it's going to reject some from the sides. That's good when you want to focus in on something, i.e., you're booming. The best pickup pattern for an interior is a hypercardioid. You might not always have access to them. They're expensive. So then your next best choice will be a shotgun. The shotgun is the most narrow and focused, and it's designed for long ranges. Outside shotguns are great. You find them the most, though. I mean, most of the time, they are the they have the least negative attributes and the most positive attributes all around for what you're going to encounter. Short shotguns have wider angles. Longer ones have narrower angles. You can get shotgun microphones for a very affordable price. You could also get a shotgun microphone that's $4,000. So there's a whole range of stuff with microphones. So those two things are what you need to think about. How are you going to know what application requires what? Jump in, try it. That's it. You know, make your mistakes. How do we capture the sounds? What do we put them on as a storage medium? A field recorder, okay? Back in the old days, they used this thing down here. It's called a Nagra recorder. It has tape, actual reel-to-reel tape. Okay? That's where the term sound speed came from. So when the director says roll sound, the sound mixer responds with sound speed or sound speeding. And that means the tape is running at the proper speed to make a true recording. But those conventions don't die. We still use those terms even though we're using digital recorders now. Here is a plethora of digital recorders. Actually, some of these are repeated. There's a Zoom H4n there. They have separate tracks on them. That enables us to keep our sounds separated. Clean, clear, separated. So some of them have 6. Some of them have 4. This one only had 2. Okay? Moving forward. How much time do we have? When is this over? We're on number 3? 11:30. It is 12:17. Good. We are doing well. After all this stuff gets collected, we go to the DAW, or the Digital Audio Workstation. This is a nonlinear audio editing system that we can put all the sounds in and edit, process, mix, etc., etc. There are several different ones, but they all do the same thing, basically. That's all I have to say about that, real quick. So, I'd like to do a quick activity, or at least try. Let's try to make this happen. That is an ENG, or production sound activity. ENG stands for electronic news gathering. It's basically like if we were to do a short little news report right here. And really what it's meant to do is to show you the difference between having the camera mic picking up the audio and having the boom, and what the big difference is. So let's try this. I need 3 people, 3 volunteers. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Come on up. Somebody's going to boom, somebody's going to talk, and somebody's going to run the recorder. So, who wants to be the sound mixer? You want to talk?
Yeah.
All right, you're going to talk. She's going to mix. You're going to boom. All right, so why don't you come over here? Get my bag out the way. Okay, so you go over there. You're going to boom her from here. You're going to run this recorder. Okay, so your job is going to be, when she starts talking, you have to get the right signal, the right volume. And you're going to use this knob to do that. And you're looking for -12, around about -12. Nobody speaks at the same dynamic level the whole time. Okay, so the more strong emphasized words might go up to -9. The softer, more subtle words might go -15, something like that. Okay, so now you're going to boom. So your idea for booming here is you want to be over your head like this. Sometimes you got to boom from below if you can't get from the top, but this produces a pronounced low boost, low frequency boost. So it gets a little bit bassy, which you can fix, but it's not ideal. You're going to aim this at the solar plexus. That's where you want. You don't want to go with somebody's head. You don't want to go with their mouth. You want to go about here. So grab this. Another thing that I notice with my students too is the placement of the hands on the boom is always too high. Remember, this pole is here to keep you far away from the talon. So move them back a bit. Yeah, come back a bit. All right, so now what you might want to do is turn this way. You, this way. You're going to face that. So, right. All right, now you're going to want to boom kind of like this. That's where you're going for. How's that? So now, you go ahead and talk. Read. No, you're going to check the level.
The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the air. I smell it in the air. Much that once was.
It's too hot. See, it's clipping, so now turn it down.
For none now live who remember it. It began with the forging of the
Go.
great rings.
Do it. Do your thing.
3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest.
Let me know when
fairest of
you're
all beings.
good.
7 to the dwarf lords,
And
great
when,
miners.
when she says she's
craftsmen
good,
of
don't
mountain
move.
halls. And 9 rings were gifted to the race of men who, above all else, desire power. For within these rings was bound the strength and will to govern each race. But they were all of them deceived. For another ring was made.
Doesn't have to be perfect. All right,
In the
cool.
land of
All right. So now, this is another important thing. She got it set. Set it, forget it. Well, don't really forget it, but don't touch it while you're recording. Because what happens if you're sitting there and the boom op's moving and they're going back and forth between actors and you're like, this person's talking soft. Oh, wow, this person's loud. Let me turn it down. This person's... What are you doing? Well, yeah, you're messing with the audio, but what are you changing? Not only the actor's voice level, but the noise floor. You could clip if you're not very, really paying attention. But what you're going to hear when you play it back is this. Even with the voices that you're hearing, you're going to hear that noise floor moving. No good. You're going to ruin the recording. So just leave that alone and use the natural attributes of the microphone to adjust for those things. Cool? All right, so now what we're going to do, we are going to, you moved. You moved. All right, ready? So you're going to roll, you're going to talk, we're going to record together, and we're going to dump it in here. Hopefully it's going to work. Okay, we ready? And then you're just going to hit record and it should go. All right, and action.
The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost. For now live who remember it. It began with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest, fairest of all beings.
Cut. That's good, right? You hit stop. Cool. All right, you guys are good. You can just leave that stuff over there and grab this. Very nice, very nice. All right, ready?
I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air.
This is the audio from the phone.
For now, live who remember it. It began with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves.
It's kind of hard to hear because it's not very loud, but do you hear the reflected sound?
Immortal, wisest, fairest of all beings.
Here.
The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth.
Now I'm going to drop in the audio from the recorder. It's probably not going to be sunk.
We're good. We have 4 minutes left.
Okay.
I smell it in the air.
There you go.
Much of that once was is lost. For now, live who remember it. It began with the forging of the great rings.
It's not sunk. I'm not going to take the time to do it, but I just want to A-B it for you again. Here is the phone recorder.
3 were given to the elves.
Oh, whoa. Sorry. Remember, this really doesn't have anything to do with the type of microphone. It has to do with the placement of the microphone.
In the air. Much of that once was is lost. For now, who remember it. It began with the forging of the great rings.
So much different. And that's just in this little thing that we did right here. So, that's your example. One more thing. I want to show you. Let's talk about one other element that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is score and music. I have a couple clips I want to show you. Really, it's just one because we're running out of time. But let's go with this.
Circle back with Nolan. Keep an eye on things.
I'll be fine.
It's not you I'm worried about.
We missing something? You think this needs music?
Yeah.
Why do we have score? Why do we put the music in?
Maybe like emotion.
Right. It makes the scene emotionally richer. It also communicates things without having to directly say them, okay? So, what kind of music will we put here? What would you use? Fun?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Intense.
What is that?
Like the
It's all right. You're not supposed to have an answer for that question.
Aside from like the style of music, but a song that makes most sense with the last thing you just said. It feels like it's not even.
That's an interesting take. That's very specific, and that's a good way to go about it. But I'm going with, really the question is designed to make you go, to answer these things, and I go, what does that mean? What are, how do we define these things? It's incredibly subjective. I'm just going to give you a couple of pointers because we only have 1 minute, okay? Long tones create suspense. Something like this requires a repetitive rhythmic quality. That creates excitement. Once you start to lay down a bed or a texture of music, you can't just rip it out from underneath the listener. You can, but realize it's going to do something, and that's going to grab their attention and wipe the slate clean. No pun intended. It's going to completely just break everything that's going on. And you can use that creatively. Also, speaking of rhythmic quality, once you get a listener's head doing this, best bet is you need to find a good way to end that. You need to end it on a strong beat. You need to strip that texture away gradually somehow.
That is our
Yeah, you're good. Just remember, once you get a rhythm going, you need to pay very strict attention to how you end that rhythm, how you place that listener down gradually or however you want to do it. Another way to go about scoring, if you're going to find pre-recorded music and place it in, is to find an event that you want to highlight and work backwards from there. That's what I got for you guys. Absolutely. Good luck.